I'm excited to do so. So, Forrest Valkai is a biologist and science communicator known for his infectious enthusiasm for science and his boundless love for life. You can catch him on YouTube and TikTok or hosting shows such as Skep Talk and Atheist Experience for a unique blend of engaging science lessons, insightful dialogues on skepticism, and heartfelt advocacy for social progress. I'll also throw in here, although it's not in the bio, that you can catch him live at SciCon in Las Vegas in less than 4 weeks, October 24th to the 27th. Forrest is one of our featured speakers this year. So no matter their age or level of education, Forrest encourages his audience to be kind, to stay curious, and to never stop learning. Welcome, Forrest.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much
much
for
for
having me.
joining us. We are so glad you're here, and we cannot wait to hear from you. I am super excited for your talk. I love hearing from you on all of your shows, and we have been dying to have you on, so thank you for coming.
All right, there's already questions about Forrest's hair color, and then we'll ask those
Oh,
later. We'll get
yeah.
to those later.
Well, thank you. That it really does mean a lot to me that you guys have me out today. It's super cool to be here. I love this organization. I'm very happy to be able to support it in some way. I also, while you were mentioning the atheist community of Discord, I popped over there just to see what's going on over there. We got the huge audience there as well as here. So like, thank you
Woohoo.
everybody for coming out and spending the evening and listening to me ramble about science today. If it's okay with you, I do want me to jump right in. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So, uh, as we get in here, just to let everybody know what's going on, um, like Rob so graciously said, my name is Forrest. I'm a biologist. I'm a science communicator. I'm here to teach you some really cool stuff. RFR has asked me to come out and talk about some stuff that matters to me, so I'm going to keep it really light. I know that this is kind of a casual thing, so I'm just going to keep it really chill. I'm just going to talk about racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, and xenophobia a little bit. Nothing too crazy. Specifically, I'm going to explain why science and skepticism are more than just tools for understanding the universe around you. Properly applied, these are tools for compassion, for progress, and for unity as well. When we view the whole scope of the universe, from atoms and cells all the way to the fabric of space-time itself, we think about our place within systems that are billions of years old, and it provides a unique perspective. It teaches us a lot about ourselves. It gives us valuable life lessons that can shape a person's view of their emotions, their relationships, their society, and even reality as a whole. So now I invite you to go on a journey with me into my world of biology so I can show you how learning about the natural world around us allows us to see beyond superficial differences and to become not just smarter, but kinder, more empathetic, and ultimately better people. We'll begin with the genus Homo, which has been around for about 2.6 million years. Our species, Homo sapiens, has only been here for around 200,000 years. Not long after our emergence in Africa, we spread wildly across the globe in a rapid fashion, reaching the farthest point in our journey, Australia, around 50,000 years ago. For the last 50 millennia, humans have been a cosmopolitan species, putting down roots in every corner of our planet, except Antarctica, of course, because we only got there in 1821. Now, at this time, Earth was home to all sorts of incredible megafauna. Just here in North America, we had woolly mammoths, which grew to be over 12 feet tall. We had glyptodons, which were almost as big as a Volkswagen Beetle. People used to use their shells as shelters. There was Diprotodon, the giant wombat. We also had terror birds. Whoops. This one is called Titanus walleri. Look at the size of that thing's skull. And by the way, this wasn't the only terror bird either. Terror birds were a whole clade. This one here is from North America. All these animals, I said, were just here from North America, but there was one in South America as well. This one's about 2.5 meters tall. The South American variety were over a meter taller. Back in North America, have I mentioned Arctodus yet? This monster is also known as the short-faced bear. Here you can see its skull right next to a grizzly bear's skull. And then there's my personal favorite, Megatherium, the giant ground sloth. Look at how flippin' massive this thing is. I love them so much. What do you call a 4-meter long sloth? Me, I call it a Snorlax. And as someone whose childhood dream was to become a Pokemon master someday, this is a very exciting species for me. But through it all, as we spread across the globe, as we persevered through the Ice Age, as we encountered and overcame these terrifying animals, humans were always just humans. 11,500 years ago, in a time when those giant ground sloths were leaving their giant footprints in the mud, we have evidence of children splashing and playing in the puddles that those footprints created. Here you can see all these different little footprints in different directions, in different angles, in different depths. And as we explored, we changed. We adapted to our environments, developing a suite of characteristics that we now clumsily use to classify what we call races. But biologically speaking, race is not a real thing. Now, that statement is pretty shocking to a lot of people. As Americans, especially, we're taught that race is a genetic, inherent, and immutable thing. We can plainly see differences in skin color, eye color, hair texture, average height. But the truth is, the phenotypic variation within humans is simply the results of evolution. Every attempt to classify humans into races has historically failed, especially the ongoing attempt to invent whiteness, but y'all ain't here for that conversation right now. Human variation is continuous. There is no clear place, either genotypically or phenotypically, or one race starts and another begins, no matter which racial trait you're looking at. So-called racial characteristics vary independently of one another. We can't use one trait to reliably predict many others, and traits blend between groups all the time. And genetic variation within so-called races is significantly greater than the variation between them. In fact, the greatest variation that we see in our whole species is in African populations. They have the largest genetic diversity among humans. So if you want to try to claim that there's some genetic basis for race, some sort of genetic component to a racial classification system, you better have about 1,000 categories for Black people alone. The real story of human evolution is much more beautiful and interesting than anything that any race realist could ever come up with. Take a look at this. Oh, pardon me. There's a picture of Africa there that was supposed to go in that area. Take a look at this map of human skin color distribution. This is where we see human skin colors in ancestral populations. We're not accounting for people immigrating from one place to another. Now, take a look at this map of UV saturation on the Earth's surface. Do you notice a pattern? You see, most humans have a chemical in their skin called melanin. Among other things, melanin protects us from the effects of UV radiation. This on the left there is eumelanin. That's what gives you anywhere from brown to dark brown skin colors and hair colors. On the right is pheomelanin. That's what gives you red hair and freckles. Not only is melanin helpful preventing sunburns, it also protects a chemical called folic acid in your body, which is destroyed by UV light hitting your skin. If you don't have enough folic acid in your body, you will suffer from a variety of symptoms, including diarrhea, fatigue, irritability. But more importantly, if you're pregnant and don't have enough folic acid, your baby is at significant risk of birth defects of the spine, spinal cord, and brain. Spina bifida is a great example of this. From an evolutionary standpoint, folic acid is very important, which means if you live in an area that is saturated with a lot of UV light, darker skin tones are also very important. But what about people like me? If melanin is so important, then why am I so woefully deficient? Well, it's because my ancestors moved way up to the north where there isn't very much UV saturation. And UV light isn't only destructive. Whereas it breaks down folic acid through photodegradation, it also photochemically converts a type of cholesterol in your skin into vitamin D. Vitamin D isn't actually a vitamin, it's a hormone. It does a lot of really important things. If you don't have enough vitamin D, you'll experience symptoms such as increased pain sensitivity, muscle spasms, weakness in the upper arms and legs. More importantly, however, if your bones are developing and you don't have enough vitamin D, you'll end up with severe bowing of the legs, commonly known as rickets. From an evolutionary standpoint, vitamin D is very important. Which means if you live in an area which isn't saturated with a lot of UV light, lighter skin tones are also very important. Every racial characteristic that you can think of has an evolutionary story like this. It's all just part of the rainbow of human variation. However, as unscientific as the concept of race is, it has a very real and very painful and very much still present effect on our history. This is important because when I was a kid, I was taught that race is a very real thing, but it doesn't matter and we shouldn't talk about it. But when you're scientifically literate, you see that it's the opposite. Race is not real at all, but it certainly matters, and we should be talking about it. This is what I meant at the beginning when I said that science gives you a new perspective. If you're a racist, you are literally upset about the effects of 100,000-year-old sunlight. With no respect, get the fuck over it. And yet, tribalism is abundant in our species. We are incredibly quick to separate ourselves into us and them and stoke passionate hatred against people whom we've never met, but just so happen to be wearing a different jersey. There are countless experimental examples of this sort of thing. Perhaps the most famous are those of Polish social psychologist Henry Teifel. Teifel sought to explore the minimal conditions required for discrimination to occur between groups. He would start by separating people into groups by totally arbitrary criteria, like whether they overestimated or underestimated the number of dots on a screen, or whether they had a preference, particular type of painting, or even just the toss of a coin. And then he would ask the two groups to play games with each other and see how they acted towards each other. He found that even in these meaningless groups, even when the participants knew that they were separated by the most trivial criteria possible, the participants displayed in-group favoritism and out-group discrimination. They were more likely to allocate resources, either points or money, in ways that favored their own group, and would go out of their way to hurt the other group, even if that meant hurting their own group as well. They would sacrifice their own potential gain, as long as it meant that they would come out ahead of the other people that they had never met and knew nothing about, other than the fact that they were sitting over there as opposed to over here. Findings like these have been demonstrated and repeated countless times. No matter the situation, no matter how minimal and meaningless the criteria, humans form in-group biases with minimal provocation. And this in-group, out-group mentality contributes to real-world issues like political divides, conspiracy theories, racial and gendered prejudice, even when we know that the divisions between the groups are superficial and arbitrary. In another experiment from the University of California, Irvine, pairs of strangers played a rigged game of Monopoly. The players knew that the game was rigged. The toss of a coin determined one player who started with twice as much money, got to roll twice as many dice, and collected twice as much money each time they pass go. And again, even though they knew the game was rigged, even though they knew their luck was arbitrary, the players who were winning based on absolutely none of their own ability would become arrogant, would smack their pieces down on the board, would boast about their wealth, and would laugh at the other player's lack of skill. We see this phenomenon played out today, when people who are born and raised in positions of privilege see the equality of other people as oppression against them.
Do you think a gay couple should have the same rights as a...
No, I don't. I really don't. I don't think it's fair.
To the gay couple?
Well, no, but the regular couple, they work so hard, and the gay couple, they want more.
When you say more, do you mean equal?
Yeah, they want equal in that.
And that's just too much.
Yeah.
Tick the box here for anecdotal evidence. I know, but it is fun. All of this seems pretty bleak, but it has a serious upside. Discriminatory behavior is extraordinarily easy to trigger, but the lines are also extraordinarily easy to draw and to redraw as many times as you want. Think of the feelings that you have for your family. How far do those feelings extend? Understanding the origins and diversity of our species helps you realize that saying that we're all a family isn't just a saying, it's reality. And if you can think of all of humanity as your family, you'll be shocked at how it changes the way that you treat even the most distant stranger, and how difficult it is for you to be provoked into tribalistic behavior. Understanding science precludes racist and tribalistic thinking. It makes you a better person. When I teach this lesson, it's easy to forget that I have this perspective because of my understanding of the data. But what about when we don't have the data? What if there's a lot of data that we're missing? Let's talk about feminism for a second. When we talk about feminist thinking or a disparity between sexes, people are often genuinely shocked by just how many things we are actually talking about. We're going to cover a few things here, but we'll start with one of my fields, bioanthropology. When we are doing archaeology, whether we're studying ancient members of our species or even our ancestors, we have our bad tendency to assume that every person is a male and every action taken was taken by a man. And we only change our minds in the face of strong evidence of the existence of women. And even then, we sometimes still don't change our minds. Here's a shocking fact that I'm about to pile a lot of stuff on top of. Feminist archaeological theory, which is the interpretation of archaeological data with the understanding that women have been here the whole time, and they did, get this, things, was only developed in the late 1970s. Until then, and even quite a bit after then, we always assumed that human evolution was more or less driven by men. After all, we know that meat eating played a huge role in our evolutionary story, and men are the ones that hunt for meat, while the women gather berries and have babies, right? But then we find burial sites like this. This is the grave of a roughly 19-year-old female human located in the Andean highlands of Peru. She was buried with stone projectiles and several stone tools used for processing meat. This is clearly the grave of a hunter. And if a male skeleton had been found here, we wouldn't question that. But because it's the grave of a female, there's still public debate over what these artifacts might mean. Another example, the tomb of the Burka warrior. This person was buried with a full set of weapons, including a sword, a spear, a shield, an axe, several arrows, a board game that is used to map out military strategies, and 2 horses, which were sacrificed and buried along with them in their honor. This grave is found among 1,100 other tombs identified in the settlement. It is one of only 2 that contained a full set of weaponry like this, and it is marked with a large boulder. This is clearly the grave of a high-ranking member of the community, a great and well-respected warrior. It was discovered in 1878, and for over 100 years, because of the contents of this grave, it was assumed that the person lying inside of it was a male, despite the fact that the skeleton was female. It wasn't until 2017 that ancient DNA testing of the bones in that grave demonstrated that this person was, in fact, not a genetic male. And funny enough, shortly after that study was completed, people started to propose ideas that many of the weapons in that grave were symbolic. Perhaps they did not actually indicate the life of a warrior. Maybe these bones were just mixed up by mistake. You know, when you have a funeral for a great high-ranking military officer, and after adorning the tomb with all sorts of weapons and horses, you just accidentally dump a woman in there. It happens all the time, right? Now, at this point, this sort of thing is old news. There are countless reports like this. Modern research has consistently shown that the myth of male hunters and female gatherers in prehistory is just that, a myth. In one monumental study, females were shown to have been hunters in nearly 80% of surveyed forager societies. And as far as warrior women are concerned, look no further than the Scythians. DNA testing of Scythian skeletons buried with weapons in more than 1,000 burial mounds across Central Eurasia has shown that 37% of Scythian women were active warriors. Compare that to the United States today, where less than 1% of men serve in the military. This problem extends into our culture today. Speaking about female warriors, how about we all play a video game where the male fighters look like this, and the female fighters look like this. What is this? I'll show you my favorite one. This is from a game called Metal Gear Solid 5. That Solid Snake there on the left, he's the main character, standing next to a sniper. The sniper's name is Quiet. They named the woman Quiet. They are both in a war zone. They are both in the same situation. These two humans have the same job, and that job is to be shot at with bullets. And she, the soldier named Quiet, showed up to the party in ripped nylons and a bikini. But that's just sexism from a cultural perspective, right? Looking at it from a scientific perspective, all we have to do is look at the data, or rather, the gaps in our data. Women aren't adequately represented in medical testing. We often only use male cells in labs for drug testing, and we learn how they'll affect female cells later on. Before 1993, women were rarely even included in clinical trials at all. The first study testing the absorbency of menstrual products using blood was published in the British Medical Journal's Journal of Sexual and Reproductive Health in, yes, take your time, think about it, August of 2023, 1 year ago. Do you ever wonder why your tampons aren't as absorbent as you want them to be? It's because they were designed to absorb water. Guess what menstrual blood isn't? That's why you have to buy supers all the damn time. That right there. Crash test dummies are often modeled after average male bodies. We didn't start using smaller dummies to represent women until 2011. And notice I said smaller dummies, not dummies modeled after average female bodies, smaller male dummies. Because today, women are 73% more likely to be severely injured and 17% more likely to die in a car crash because car safety features are not designed for them. The weight distribution on the crash test dummies is wrong. To this day, there is still a bias towards male bodies in medical textbooks, with only small sections dedicated to female-specific anatomy. And when it comes to female reproductive anatomy, even medical schools have to deal with the taboo of teaching about or even naming structures like the clitoris. Case in point, the clitoris was first mapped by Australian urologist named Helen O'Connell. Do you want to guess when? 2005. And since we're also talking about racism earlier, don't even get me started on the ongoing struggle to get black people represented in medical textbooks. Rashes look different on different skin colors, y'all. When you learn about the archaeology and early human history, of how gender and sex are understood across different cultures, across time and space, it becomes a lot easier to break out of the heuristics of our male-centric culture. For this and so many other reasons, understanding science precludes sexist thinking. It makes you a better person. Now, you'll notice that in that last segment, I often use the term females instead of women. There is a reason for this. The reason is that sex and gender are different things. While I had evidence for the sex of these ancient people, I rarely had evidence for their genders. So I'm trying to be a little bit more inclusive and also inconsistent, consistent in what I'm saying. That's the thing. If you're being inclusive, you are also probably being scientifically accurate. And if you're being scientifically accurate, you are almost certainly being inclusive. For clarity on this, sex refers to the anatomical and physiological phenotype of males, females, and intersex people. Gender refers to the socially constructed behaviors and characteristics of men, women, girls, and boys, and non-binary people. One's gender need not coincide with one's sex. Unfortunately, like climate change and to a lesser extent evolution, the science of sex and gender has recently become a politicized issue. People like to pretend that intersex, transgender, and non-binary people are a new phenomenon that's suddenly being thrust upon the world in just the last few years. But that's simply not the case. Consider, for example, this map of gender-diverse cultures. Every one of those pins represents an example of a culture which recognizes more than two genders and or transgender people, and always has. Among the Savakala people of Madagascar, people known as the Sakrata are assigned male at birth, but are raised as girls and live out their lives wearing dressing as women, wearing their hair long with decorative knots, wearing jewelry. These are not trans people. This is a third gender option. Among Aboriginal Australians, third gender people are commonly known as sister girls, for those who are assigned males at birth but live as women, or as brother boys, for those who are assigned female at birth but live as men. There are dozens of third gender traditions across indigenous cultures here in North America. Many of them adopt the blanket term two-spirit. The Wabanaki people even incorporate them into their creation story, in which the great hero Glushkape shot an arrow into an ash tree, splitting it into two pieces, and after the split spirit of the tree agreed to become people, Glushkape breathed life into it. One half of the tree became the first man, the other half became the first woman, and the little bit of essence left in the trunk became the first two-spirit person, who is both masculine and feminine. Trans and non-binary people are a part of their creation story. They've been there the whole time. How about some specific examples? Like Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antonius, who ruled the Roman Empire around 218 AD. They regularly wore makeup and wigs. They demanded to be referred to as a lady rather than as a lord. They referred to themselves as a queen, and they offered up great sums of money to any doctor who could change their body to be female. For this reason, some museums are even rewriting plaques and information about them using she, her pronouns, as would have been her preference, as presumably a trans woman. Or how about Chevalier d'Édon, a celebrated French diplomat, soldier, and spy who fought in the 7 Years' War? Although she was assigned male at birth, she lived openly, both as a man and a woman at different times in her life, which drew a lot of public attention at the time. This is, you can see here on the right, political cartoons of this person. She was very famous. At one point, she even infiltrated the Russian court by presenting as a woman. Then, starting in 1777, she started to live permanently as a woman and was even recognized officially as a woman by King Louis XVI. So gender is a diverse and interesting thing. Because it's culturally constructed, it is by definition not a binary system. But sex isn't a strict binary either. Sex is a multivariate system with lots of different factors and mechanisms playing into it, from chromosomes to genes to hormones, internal genitalia and external genitalia, not a single one of which has only two options, by the way. And the result is a gradient of phenotypes, a spectrum of sex upon which most of us fall close to the poles, but many of us don't. The UN estimates around 1.7% of the global population is intersex, and 1.7% might seem trivial until you remember that 1.7% of the global population is 136 million people. That's a population about the size of Russia. Imagine for a moment living in a world where you hold down this insanely parochial worldview that there are only males and females and Russians. But it's okay because the Russians are just anomalies and we don't talk about the Russians. And of course, let's not forget the fact that over 99% of the atoms in the universe are either hydrogen or helium. The other 116 elements occur at a significantly lower frequency than intersex people, less than 1%. And yet somehow we don't consider the periodic table to be a binary. I'm currently studying biomedical science, and if we're talking about, say, a male body in class, we are very careful to distinguish if we're talking about an anatomical male, or a phenotypic male, or a genetic male, or a chromosomal male, or a hormonal male, because not one of these things necessarily indicates the others, and none of them are necessarily the same thing as man, because when you add gender to the mix, it becomes a lot more difficult to sort people into discrete boxes. And none of this even touches on the concept of sexuality, with homosexuality being portrayed as a recent development, which is on the rise due to increased social acceptance. You know, like how we're all left-handed now. But of course, the issue is that we've observed homosexual behavior in over 1,500 animal species. If any other trait was found to be as ubiquitous as homosexuality, it would likely be assumed to be an ancestral characteristic dating back to some of the earliest animal lineages. The idea that homosexuality arose separately and accidentally in so many different species only makes sense from a heteronormative perspective, where heterosexual behavior is seen as the natural default, and homosexuality is viewed as an anomaly that needs to be justified. Shifting the focus to humans, the belief that LGBT people are some recent aberration which are biologically separate from cisgender heterosexuals, rather than just being a part of the complex and diverse spectrum of anatomy, chromosomes, and behaviors, which we often oversimplify as sex and sexuality, exemplifies the kind of dualistic, and if we're being honest, Eurocentric thinking that impedes both social progress and scientific discovery. By understanding science precludes transphobic and homophobic thinking. It makes you a better person. The core message of everything that I've shared today is skepticism. Whether you're thinking about racism, sexism, homophobia, you name it, the one thing that ameliorates all these issues and paves the way to progress is the willingness to question our assumptions, to evaluate new evidence, and to remain open to new ideas, even when those ideas challenge our most deeply held beliefs. Despite the provocative and unfortunately political tone of this talk, this shouldn't be new to anyone, especially in a community like this. This is the way that science has progressed. We used to think that life was stagnant. Then we discovered things like fossils and we accepted evolution. It completely changed the way that we thought about life. We used to think that the universe was eternal. Then we discovered things like the recession rate of galaxies and accepted the Big Bang model. It completely changed what we thought about the whole universe. This is supposed to be the point of skepticism. But I feel compelled to say all this because I sometimes find that people in the skeptic community believe skepticism to only be an eternal stance of disagreeing. And the more popular or progressive an idea, the more important that it is for you to disagree with it. And the more people that you offend by disagreeing, the more skeptical you are. But skepticism isn't just doubting for the sake of doubting. It's approaching the world with a healthy sense of inquiry. It's asking how we know what we know and being willing to change our minds, even when doing so is really uncomfortable. Skepticism is not just a philosophy, and it's not just a skill. It's a way of living. And properly applied, it should foster more than just curiosity and open-mindedness, but a commitment to both personal growth and social justice as well. In my opinion, if you are thinking critically about this world, you should not be able to tolerate the world the way it is. Let me illustrate what I mean by a story. Famed neurobiologist Robert Sapolsky once reported on a group of olive baboons called the Kikurok troop, which he observed for decades. The baboons were exactly what you would expect from baboons. Their troop was highly socially stratified. The big, strong males were terrors to all the weaker males and females alike. Then one day, the troop went foraging for food at a local tourist lodge and found a bunch of meat that was tainted with tuberculosis. And you'll never guess who got to eat all the meat. It was the big, strong males who pushed their way to the front. As a result, almost half of the males in the troop died. And practically overnight, this troop was predominantly female. And the males that were left were ones that had devoted their life to social behaviors like grooming. Now, you might expect that the low-level males would rise up and become the new alphas, but that wasn't what happened at all. The troop remained peaceful. Those who weren't willing to be social died off. And even when new adolescent males would enter into the troop acting just as brash and aggressive as any other adolescent male in any other group, they were quickly knocked down several pegs by their peers. After about 6 months, they had all fully assimilated into the new lifestyle. And this new culture persisted within this troop for over 20 years. All I'm saying is that if a bunch of baboons can revolutionize their whole society by eating some fetid meat on accident, maybe we humans can use the scientific knowledge provided by the best data that we have to make this world a better place for everyone on purpose. But as we embark on this journey to understand and ameliorate the complexities of human identity, it's crucial to recognize that there is no single aspect of us, of who we are, that exists in isolation, be it race, gender, sexuality, whatever. I'm going to check really quick and see why these aren't playing. Cannot play media. Very good. Very good.
If you need us to pull it up in another screen,
it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
It's not a big deal. I include all these different aspects of human identity in a single discussion because these different aspects exist together. They interact in ways that shape both our perspectives of ourselves and our experiences with one another in unique and profound ways. And for that reason, these lessons are infinitely more powerful and immeasurably more useful when they are also considered together. When you approach this understanding through an intersectional lens, you see how these threads and systems overlap and how they affect different individuals in unique ways. By understanding these intersections, we can advocate in a more nuanced way for more effective solutions to social issues, ensuring that our efforts towards equality are both comprehensive and inclusive. And that is what studying science compels me to do. We've covered a lot of things today, but the one thing that ties it all together is humans. This bizarre, mostly hairless species of great ape with poorly structured pelvises and dumb, non-opposable big toes and weird, tiny little mouths. But despite the fact that we are a laughably inbred species, there's a lot of diversity among human populations across the world. And that diversity can seem threatening to people who struggle to think outside of the confines of their own backyard. I'm going to take a quick second and just stop this presentation and see if I can get this to behave a little bit. Give me just 1 second here, because I want to make sure you guys are getting the full effect of everything, Want to get your
You're
money's
good.
worth in this free presentation.
We'll stall for time. Quick, Rob. Do a
It's all the
dance.
atheist
Sing a
money
song.
for us.
We'll have to discuss
All the atheist money.
your inbred comment about humanity. I don't know if you're talking about the bottleneck that perhaps happened, which I talked about in the talk, or you're talking about the fact that like we also bred with other versions of Homo. So
Yeah, among other things, yeah. I'm hoping that this is going to keep moving. We'll see what happens. There we go. Hey, all right, we got some motion again. I didn't want this to be stagnant pictures for you guys. How boring. Hatred and xenophobia plagues our global civilization, stifling progress and impeding unity. But we humans are a remarkable bunch. We outlived all of those extraordinary creatures that I mentioned near the beginning, and all the other hominins as well, scraping along by the skin of our teeth at times. We've learned to manipulate our environments. We've learned to cultivate our food. And we've learned to establish remarkable levels of social order, even though we regularly fail at all of those things too. No matter the circumstances, we explore and probe our surroundings. We find patterns where there aren't really patterns. We find meaning where there isn't really meaning. We find hope where there could not have been hope otherwise. We take big chances and we make big mistakes and we get very messy. Most of all, we care for one another. And it's because of those qualities that we've survived long enough to launch ourselves and our machines out into interplanetary space. And it's what we found there that speaks the most to me. In 1977, we launched a spacecraft called Voyager 1. This is one of the most famous spacecrafts in history because it contained one of the golden records. Among other things, these phonographic records contain audio recordings of the sounds of Earth, the sounds of mud pots bubbling, the sounds of rain and thunder, in one bizarre track, we hear wind, footsteps, a heartbeat, and laughter, all at the same time. Creepy as fuck. These are the actual recordings, by the way. These are actual copies of the records that have been digitized, and you can find these on nasa.gov. These records also contain greetings in over 55 different languages, starting with Sumerian, which makes sense because writing began with Sumerian as well as Arabic,
تحياتنا للأصدقاء في النجوم يا ليت يجمعنا الزمان.
Czech,
Milí přátelé, přejeme vám vše nejlepší.
German,
Herzliche Grüße an alle.
Japanese,
こんにちは。お元気ですか?
Hindi,
धरती के वासियों की ओर से नमस्कार।
Hebrew,
Shalom.
Urdu,
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। हम ज़मीन के रहने वालों की तरफ से आपको खुश आमदीद कहते हैं।
Punjabi,
奥地利安。
Mandarin,
各位都好吧，我们都很想念你们，有空请到这儿来玩。
Latin,
Salvete quicumque estis. Bonam erga vos voluntatem habemus, et pacem per astra ferimus.
Zulu,
Siyanibingelela maqhawe, sinifisela inkonzo ende.
Turkish,
Sayın Türkçe bilen arkadaşlarımız, sabah şeriflerinize hayırlı olsun.
Thai,
สวัสดีค่ะสหายนายธรณีพ้นพวกเราในธรณีนี้ขอส่งมิตรจิตมาถึงท่านทุกคน
Spanish,
Hola y saludos a todos.
and English.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
Voices from around the globe, simply saying hello. Also included are messages from 15 UN delegates, which turned out to be so long-winded and self-important that they take the form of a mashup of random chunks of random sentences that make very little sense, and that makes me very happy. The records also contain music from around the world, from a Bach concerto to a Navajo chant, to bagpipes from Azerbaijan. On the 14th of February, 1990, as it was flying through space around 4 billion miles, 6.4 billion kilometers away, it turned itself around, and it took what is, in my opinion, the most important picture ever taken. Here, caught in the center of scattered lens flares, is the Earth, a tiny blue pinpoint of light, only a little over a tenth of a pixel in size. There's a lot that I would like to say about this image, but Carl Sagan already said it better than I ever could. Upon seeing this image, he famously wrote, "Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another. how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. I said at the beginning that looking through the lens of science grants us the ability to see beyond the superficial differences that have divided humanity for centuries. I hope that now you can see what I mean. By understanding the evolution of human variation, we realize that race is not a biological reality, but a social construct that has been used to justify unfounded hatred and inequality. By understanding social psychology, remember to be cautious of just how easy it is to fall into the trap of us versus them thinking. And we highlight the importance of recognizing our shared humanity. When you learn about the pervasive sexism in society and science alike, we are compelled to advocate for fairness and equality, ensuring that every person is heard and valued. Understanding the distinction between sex and gender, and the historical existence of trans, intersex, and non-binary people across time and space challenges us to expand our definitions and embrace the diversity of human experience. Similarly, recognizing homosexuality in nature broadens our perspective on what is so-called normal, teaching us that diversity in love is as old as love itself. And when we take a step back and look at our tiny, fragile planet, juxtaposed with the vast emptiness of space, we are reminded of our shared responsibility to treat each other with kindness, respect, and compassion. Science teaches us to question, to explore, and to understand. It breaks down the barriers of ignorance and fear, replacing them with knowledge and empathy. Understanding science makes hateful, tribalistic, xenophobic, and myopic thinking much, much harder to accomplish. It gives you a broader perspective. It gives you a deeper purpose. Through learning science, we learn to see the world and each other with clearer eyes and kinder hearts. It's not just about understanding the world. It's about becoming better stewards of it and better caretakers of the people within it. We are one species. We live on this one planet. We have just one chance to get this right. So as we continue to learn and grow today and long afterwards, let us remember to be more curious, more compassionate, and ultimately more human. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, that was amazing. I think that is probably one of the best lectures we have had on this program, Forrest. I
Well,
think
thank
the
you.
others will agree with me. There's lots of clapping happening in the image or in the screens as well as in the chat. So that was awesome.
I'm sorry that the videos broke a couple of times. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, it ruined it. It was terrible. Everybody left. No, it was great. You are now receiving thunderous applause in the chat. Well deserved, I think. That was really, really great. You're
Well, thank you.
putting my my lectures to shame when I teach anthropology now. I'm gonna have to up my game quite a bit.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was a great one. I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen, watch that as well to get even more from it. And we have a lot of questions too. But first, tell us more. Where can people find more of your awesome work and goings on and learnings and teachings?
You can find me on them internets. You check me out on YouTube and on TikTok. Sometimes I remember that I have an Instagram as well and a Threads account. Everybody cool's on Threads now. I'm also going to be at SciCon this year, in case you hadn't heard. Going to be doing a talk on how to teach evolution to a creationist, upon which I'll be drawing from my most famous YouTube series called Reacteria, where I take pseudoscience videos about creationism, videos that claim to be able to debunk evolution and explain why they are doing such a poor job of not only explaining creationism, but also understanding what evolution is in the first place. And we're going to use that to talk about a little bit about how to make evolution come alive for people who are predisposed to not believe it exists in the first place.
And I had the pleasure of interviewing Forrest in advance of his appearing at SciCon, and I just put the link to that in the chat if people would like to learn more about that. So the link is actually to a written article which summarizes the video, but there's a link to the direct video right inside of it.
There you go. So check that out if you want to see more of my stupid face. There's a place you can do that. If you're into tabletop gaming, I'm very proud of a series that we recently did. It's called Roll for Initiative. My friends and I got together to raise money to save lives all around the world by way of Doctors Without Borders, who are the real goddamn heroes that are saving lives on the ground in like the most dangerous, terrible parts of the world. They are right now in Gaza, in Ukraine, in Sudan, in Yemen, in Congo, in Chad, in Lebanon. They are out there saving lives regardless of race, religion, politics, nationality, ethnicity, anything. So we've raised over $29,000 for them for the past couple of months. I'm very proud of that. And if you're looking for other organizations to donate to as well, there's this really cool one called Recovering from Religion, which I'm also very proud to be a supporter of. So like, check that one out as well. And if you have anything to give, maybe skip a coffee and help save lives and help improve lives all around the world by contributing to those organizations.
And there's a donate link right on our homepage, which is recoveringfromreligion.org.
Hey, there you go.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for that. So, of course, you're brilliant and a great presenter and a nice person who helps with all these charities. Like,
I'm gonna get a huge head, you guys.
Man, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to do with all this. It's almost as if learning about science does make you a better person.
It fucking does, dude. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think so. And oh, hey, before we go to Q&A, should we look at the poll question results?
Please.
Hell yes.
Let's do that.
I'm most curious about how many people know about Roland.
Me too.
Oh, yeah, we forgot. We're going to talk about Roland. Yeah, okay. So I am going to share the poll results here. And for anybody that wasn't here earlier, or in case you forgot, the first question that we asked was, can scientific knowledge give meaning to your life? And 64% of people said definitely it can. 30% of people said yes in some cases. And just a couple of people said maybe a little. And one person said, no, I get all the meaning from my holy book. And I don't know if that was a sarcastic answer or a serious answer. It's fine either way. Welcome.
If it's a serious answer, we hope that gets better someday.
Yeah. Well, if it was a serious answer, they just learned a lot about science that might have changed their mind. But if they can let us know.
It is serious, though. Working the helpline, a lot of the people who are first stepping out, that's their existential crisis. They've gotten all their meaning from whatever holy book it is. Mostly, honestly, in our case, it's the Bible, people calling us. And they just don't understand what they're going to do with the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and then so next we have, when did you first formally learn about evolution? And we had quite a spread on this one. 25% of people learned about it for the first time in primary or elementary school. 23%, about the same amount, in middle school. 19%, it was in high school. For 8%, it was in college. I'm in that group as well, although I didn't answer. The hosts don't answer the poll questions, but just throwing that out there.
I found out a trick last time, and I did. You can click see the QR code, and you can answer the question. So I did this time.
Oh, nice.
Oh, hey, good to know. I've only been hosting this for years. That's awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to answer next time.
My answers are in here for the first time.
Ooh. Were you the one person who said as an adult?
Well, actually, I had a problem with that one because I don't actually remember being taught officially or formally. I learned it from books that I got from the library and that kind of a thing. And I was Catholic, so as Helen knows, they don't really teach you like, literalism of the Old Testament. So I just absorbed it, but I went to Catholic school. I don't think they brought it up. They also didn't teach
Right.
creationism. They just kind of ignored the subject of where everything came from.
I learned evolution in Catholic school.
Well, you're younger than
Oh.
I am, so I'm more.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, I did because it's theology class, science class. The
Yeah.
twain shall
yeah.
not meet. So,
Non-overlapping magisteria.
So I was
I think
pulled, I was
Yeah, that's
pulled
right.
between the in primary elementary school because that's the time I learned it, but I didn't learn it formally there. So I could have also answered I never formally have been taught this, which I don't think I ever was.
So once again, despite my best efforts, I have failed to make this survey question
We
properly
try.
mutually exclusive with the answer choices. This is a select the best answer or
That's
the
right.
most correct answer kind of quiz,
blew it.
okay? All right, next question. Oh, I forgot. 13% of people said they had never formally been taught about this, so possibly similar to Rob.
I'm here for you.
And 10% are not sure, don't remember. Well, now you have learned about it a little bit. So there you go. Let's see. Is evolution real? 90% of people who were here said yes. There's, probably a little bit of a self-selection bias going on here since you knew what this talk was going to be about tonight. But, we had 10% who said it's complicated, which is also probably an interesting answer. So we can talk more about that later. And then the important question of the evening, are you aware of Roland the Closet Goblin? So only 16% of our guests here this
Oh.
evening who answered the poll said yes, and I've paid tribute recently. 74% of people said no, 4% are agnostic, and 6% prefer not to
No,
say,
I'm
perhaps
fascinated by
at
that
risk
last
of
answer
angering Roland.
because why would they
Right.
prefer not to say?
That's their relationship with Roland is private, Rob.
Exactly.
You can't
It's
force them to talk about
complicated.
that.
So, Forrest, would you like to tell us a little bit about this Roland and how we should pay tribute, or if we
Yeah,
should?
so this was a joke that started. So it started on TikTok. Hank Green made a video asking people like what's something that's super common that you just can't wrap your head around, that just doesn't make any sense to you, or it's super acceptable but you find unacceptable. And my answer was faith. I have no comprehension of how somebody could just decide to believe a thing. And I talked about how, like, yes, absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence. So just because I can't prove something isn't real, like a god, that doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't real. But what you don't get to do is turn that around backwards and say you can't prove it's real, therefore it is. That's a huge problem. And the example that I gave was my own version of Russell's teapot, or the magic unicorn or whatever else, which is Roland, this goblin that lives in my closet. It just started as a goblin. If I told you there's a magic interdimensional goblin that lives in my closet and disappears every time I open the door, you can't prove that isn't real. But that doesn't mean you should believe it. And the idea kind of just caught on, as memes do. And a lot of people were asking questions about like, oh, does it mean that you the t-shirts? You can buy one of those at valkailabs.com. But people were asking like, will Roland forgive my sin, or will the goblin forgive my sins? And I just came up with a name on the spot. Like, Roland, it doesn't care. Dude, Roland's a good guy. And like, do I need to pay tribute? Do I need to tithe to the goblin? I'm like, he likes sandwiches. Just go get a Subway sandwich, leave it in your closet, and ask a question. And when you open the closet, if the sandwich is still there, that means the answer to the question is either yes, no, or maybe. That's what it is. That's how you pray to Roland. He grants wishes, and if he takes the sandwich, then your wish will be granted immediately through magical means. But only if the sandwich is gone when you open the closet. And if that doesn't happen, then you just have to hope that he has your best interest in mind. Roland's a good dude, and so this has kind of just become a meme that has now pervaded like every like atheist and science and skepticism call-in show that I do. Whenever I'm on Skep Talk, whenever I'm on the Atheist Experience, whenever I'm on the Line network shows or the ASCA shows, Roland comes up from time to time when people talk about, oh, I know God's real because I really, really believe it, or because a lot of people believe it, or because it gives meaning to my life, or whatever. Roland's there to provide all the same services in the stupidest way possible. And it's become such a thing that people have now been sending me. Somebody crocheted this. This is the little Roland that somebody made and sent me in the mail with a little magic wand and everything, a little vest. It's great. A little guy, and he sits behind me here. So yeah, that's the story, the ridiculous story of a ridiculous creature that I came up for a silly ass TikTok video, and has now become a notable part of my career because that's how the internet works.
I love that, and I love Roland's vest. That is adorable.
Isn't he wonderful? A good little guy.
He is. I'll have to start leaving some snacks for him in my closet just in case.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah,
Just, you never know.
absolutely.
You never know.
You never know. And so it's not safe to take the risk of not leaving sandwiches because we don't know.
Pascal's
Precisely.
wager. What if you say no, and you're wrong, Cara?
Yes, and he goes
Yeah.
without a sandwich for a day. Wouldn't you be sad?
I
He's not gonna
I
do
don't want to
anything
risk
about
that. I love it. Somebody said you can put a dog in there for him too. I'm
Why
sure it
not?
would be Roland that ate the sandwich and not the dog, but who's to say? Okay, let's go to questions. What do you say we do Q&A?
I'm into it.
All right. Let's see. We've got quite a few here. The first one is actually a question about your hair. Someone is wondering if, and you can feel free to answer this if you want to, or say that is none of your damn business. Totally up to you. Is your hair color natural or part of your iconic style? And Rob has noted here next to this question that those are not necessarily mutually exclusive.
So my hair in the lighting in this room looks a lot more red. It just brings out the highlights. My hair is actually dark brown. If I cover my head, you can see it's just dark brown, but it's got some red highlights in there, and those come out a lot in this particular kind of lighting. We've got all this overhead light. It looks more like me, but I look significantly creepier if I turn those lights off and just exist as a fucking ghost here in the darkness. The dark hair and extremely pale skin, this is more like reality. This is what I really am.
Little known fact, Cara, my hair is actually the same color as Forrest, but I have awful lighting here. So it
Truth.
appears just gray.
Truth.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can't prove it's
totally.
wrong.
We can't. It must be true then. All right. What other questions do we have, Rob?
Well, let's see. Some very deep ones and not so. Let's ask this one. I think I know who asked this question. What is the difference between a vitamin, a mineral, and a hormone? I think this came up when you were talking about the thing that we call a vitamin that isn't.
Yeah. So vitamins and so minerals specifically is referring to inorganic compounds. Vitamins are trace elements. They're well, that's not fair to say that they're the same. I'm not great at like nutritional dialogue, but like there's vitamins are just things that do a job that you need a bit of to do things in your body. So a lot of them we can synthesize ourselves. Some of them we can't, like vitamin C, we can't synthesize by ourselves. A hormone is specifically a signaling molecule. It's something that does a specific job. Hormones usually are things that you are making yourself. So like vitamin D is created in your body through photochemical processes like that. And so like other examples of hormones, like testosterone, estrogen, estradiol, things like this that prolactin, prostaglandins, all these things that are causing specific functions in your body. That's what hormones are all about. Vitamins are necessary to serve a purpose, like they're playing a part in a series of chemical reactions. I'm pretty sure that's a functional definition of them. I am going to go double check my intro bio textbooks and see if I can come up with a better explanation and be very grumpy that I didn't give it at this particular moment. That's just off the top of my head, the way that I would classify them, because I haven't refreshed on that topic in almost a decade. So yeah.
I love it. That was great. Now we're getting science puns in the chat, so I'm here for it. Okay, let's continue grilling you with complicated science questions. Someone else is wondering, are there discernible differences between male and female cells? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, so like it depends on a lot of things. The first thing is, if we're talking about genetic male or female, then yeah, there's going to be slightly different functionality in there. For example, the Y chromosome codes for a particular type of ribosome. So protein synthesis is just very slightly different in a chromosomal male than it is for a chromosomal female. Things like that. In terms of like how cells respond to things, yeah, there's some differences in the way that cells behave in a biochemical or a pharmaceutical context. But that is far outside of my area of expertise. I know that it's a thing that happens. I am not qualified to talk about why,
Fair enough.
especially because as a medical component, it just wouldn't be fair for me to do so. It'd be right there on that border of ethical that I don't want to tread.
And I love that you brought that up because I think there's such a tendency for people to want to speak on all topics as if they are an expert sometimes. And
Yeah.
that's not what we want to be doing. We want to be speaking about the things to which we have some applicable knowledge and
It's okay to
letting
say
people
we
who know
don't know
better.
when we don't know.
Absolutely. It's very important. And like people tend to think, especially with science, they think that you to be a biologist, you must know all biology things at all times. And like, no, we have a lot of specialization, a lot of stratification. I specialize in evolution, bioanthropology, and biomedical science of what I'm working on right now. That's my area. But like my undergrad was integrative biology, so I have a little bit of a diversity in my understanding, very broad view of biology. So I can talk on a lot of things, but when it gets to deep dives, it really, you want some sort of a more specific thing for me to get into. Otherwise, think something about evolution, something about humans, something about biomed, something about paleontology, things like that are going to be way more up my alley. So just, yeah, I want to make sure people know that you shouldn't look up to anybody with that as if they can just know all the things. Like I hope people remember that, especially in an organization like this, because a lot of people from a religious background are coming out of dogmatic thinking, and they might hope to find dogma somewhere else. They might be predisposed to that. It's very dangerous. So like, Baron, please make sure that anybody that you were taking seriously is willing to say, I don't know, from time to time. And
Okay,
if they can't,
so
don't
up
take
the
them
line,
seriously.
up the line of paleontology, the things you were talking about, we have a question, which I think you may
Yeah.
be able to answer. Can you speak about the DNA of Australian Aboriginals? I heard somewhere, some science communicator that I don't recall, I'm quoting the quote here, that weirdly there is no Asian Euro DNA in there, and it appears to have come straight from Africa, even though that route would seem to go right through the other regions.
That's the first
You heard
I'm
about
hearing
that,
of it. Let me
that
see.
claim?
Yeah,
You
let me
know,
see if that's a thing.
I I think I might know what this is asking about. Forrest, I'm wondering if this person is asking about the out of Africa theory of
Yeah.
Homo sapiens versus the theory that modern humans developed simultaneously in different regions of the world from existing populations of Homo erectus or Neanderthal.
That's called the multi-regional hypothesis, and it's not not a thing really. It's used to. So the multi-regional hypothesis is that idea that we know for sure that other human species spread out of Africa. Homo erectus did it first, and it's a process we called or an event that we call out of Africa #1. That happened about 1.8 million years ago, and they colonized all across Eurasia down into Indonesia and things. And then we find other species like Homo floresiensis on the island of Flores, which we had originally assumed were Homo erectus that then speciated there on that island. And now it's looking a little bit more like they actually came straight from Africa as well. Our species, Homo sapiens, we emerged from Africa 200,000 years ago in an event called Out of Africa 2, Electric Boogaloo. And we that have interbred with other species, especially Neanderthals. The multi-regional hypothesis claims that our interbreeding with different species of hominins as we spread across the world is the cause for many racial characteristics as well. And a lot of race realists will use the multi-regional hypothesis to try to push their narrative. It is a big old load of bullshit. The percentage of DNA shared in those between those populations is negligible. We're talking about 1 to 2%, maybe like 4% maximum. But like 2 is like the high end usually. And so like in Eurasian populations, especially Western European populations, you're going to see a lot of Neanderthal DNA. In East Asian populations, you're going to see a lot of Denisovan DNA. And you're not going to see these things nearly as frequently, 0 or close to 0% in African populations. So that is a thing. However, I just Googled and just double checked because, like, as far as I know, Australians came down through Asia, and that is apparently what the consensus remains. If there's new data on that, it might be from one outlying interesting study, and that's pretty cool. You can find one study that says just about damn near anything. I would be interested to see what the critical response to that study has been and what other scientists are doing to replicate and to dig more into that question before I take it too seriously. As far as I've learned it, as far as I know it, as far as I've been taught, and as far as I'm pretty sure everybody has known for the past few decades, humans went out from Africa, east across Asia, down to Australia.
And also over the Bering Strait.
Yes, and then also across, to
as
North America
opposed
as well.
to coming across the ocean when they were Jewish in wooden boats.
Although
Interestingly
there
enough,
is some. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Forrest. I'm stealing your thunder.
Oh, you're fine. No, I was just gonna say, like, we weren't even the first. The boats thing is fucking cool because we weren't the first species to make those. Homo erectus was. Homo erectus was the first species to make boats. They were the first species to control fire. They were the first species to learn that you can. They were the first species to cook. They were the first species to figure out that you can sharpen both sides of a rock. That's really neat. They're an incredibly cool species. They're what I did my first master's studying. They're really, really cool.
Wait. So you're saying Joseph Smith was almost right? It just wasn't human beings which came over. They weren't the Jews to inhabit the Western Hemisphere. It was Neanderthals or people like that.
I'm not saying he's even a little right in any way whatsoever, because Homo erectus did not come to the Americas, as far as I know.
See how
Just
Rob
wanted to
smuggled
clarify
that in
that
there.
for a few people we have here who I know are ex-Mormons.
Right.
Thank you.
I love it. Okay, let's see. Okay, well, this is now a great time for this question. As someone says, as a science communicator, there's a line you need to walk between making your topic accessible while also not oversimplifying. You have the added skill of making it entertaining. Can you talk about your approach to doing this? And this person says they do this for work and they're looking for guidance from a pro.
Yeah. So, so there is a line between making something accurate and accessible. And so anybody who's even done a little bit of professional science communication knows if you want to go viral, all you have to do is say a bunch of dumb, untrue shit. And the people who argue with you will drive your engagement. So you don't want to do that. If you say something that's entirely 100% completely true and really digs into the meat of what you're talking about, then you are not going to be successful whatsoever, because only the people who are trying to learn that thing at a graduate level are going to listen to what you're saying. And so it's not really useful at all. And so what you have to get good at is, it's like the Carnegie quote, you get good at speaking. If you want to get good at speaking, the trick is to speak and 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 speak. If you want to get good at teaching, the goal is to teach and teach and teach and teach, but also get the feedback and start recognizing the most common questions and problems and hangups that people have so that you can incorporate the answers to those questions into your lesson. And that way, you obviously you're going to leave some stuff out. That's always going to be the case. If I'm talking to a group of 6th graders about DNA, I'm going to say something like DNA is like what controls what your body is and does. That's not fucking true. That's just so inaccurate and so oversimplified that might as well have said nothing. But for a 6th grade audience, it teaches you what DNA is, and it's good enough. And then later on, we can get into all the things that DNA isn't responsible for, all the ways your body can change regardless of DNA, all the ways your DNA can be changed even in your own lifetime, all these different things. DNA expression and stuff. And so that's kind of what you're trying to get across. You want to always be asking yourself, who am I actually talking to? And what is the point? What is the goal of this lesson? What is the reaction, the response that I'm trying to get out of it? And that's what you should be teaching to. And then as you do that, you'll get good at incorporating answers to common questions and common hangups. You'll get good at knowing the parts of the lesson where people's eyes light up and they get really excited, and making sure that's the focus. And the last thing that I'll say on the topic is that teaching a good lesson is the same thing as telling a good story. If you go to the movies, it'd be very easy to have a movie that's like, hey, there's a monster, but they killed it. Bye. And that's the movie. You know what I mean? The exciting part of the movie is the arc, the whole thing. The exciting part of the book is the arc, you want to be involved in it and then have that big reveal at the end. And so it's the same thing with science when you're teaching, is you tell a good story. Get people excited, make it emotional, make it about them, but tell them why it matters to them, draw them in, hook your thumbs into their throat and make them do the thing. And then when you get to that part where you drop the bomb on them and you see their mind explode, that's the best fucking feeling in the world. That's my recommendation for anybody who wants to start learning. Just be insane with it, and it'll work really well.
So speaking of how important this is my own question, of how important a story is to making a good movie. What did you think of that night at the Creation Museum, Forrest?
There was no story. There was no anything. It was so bad, and they recorded it in 24 hours on a goddamn cell phone. What the fuck? And you know what the thing is, dude? I'm not begrudging them for the tech. I really am not. My YouTube channel was started with my cell phone. The first several videos that got my channel to take off were recorded and edited on my cell phone. And so, like, I respect the hustle, no problem. But like, then you have to put the work in somewhere else. If you don't have the money for new equipment, then dedicate the time to writing something that makes literally any sense. And like, I don't know, man. I
For
also
people
heard,
who don't know what we're talking about, so Forrest's series, Reacteria, his last, I think it was the last one, and I watched it. Yeah, I watched it recently. So Forrest reacted to the Eric Hovind movie, where he Eric plays the night guard at the museum, and it is so bad. It is so
it's so bad. And like that, what sucks, they have this one section in there which really pissed me off, where they take a quote from Stephen Jay Gould about how people used to use a misunderstanding of evolution to justify racism. And they cut off the whole second paragraph of that quote about why you can't do that and why that makes no sense. And they just put a big plaque on the wall saying, famed evolutionary biologist admits that evolution leads to racism and that evolution is a racist idea. And like, I later learned, Paul Logia commented on that video and said the Tim Chafee, the guy who co-starred in that movie, apparently wrote all of those signs and everything for that museum. He's one of the guys who did. So you've got this fucking guy like starring in a movie about the dishonest arguments that he is instrumental in making, talking about how like apes don't have sclera. No apes have a white part of their eyes. Don't ever look at a fucking ape and prove me wrong very easily with your own goddamn eyeballs. You just have to believe me. Take my word for it that only humans have a white part of their eyes, and that's why we're magic. Fuck off. It's so lame.
Are you going to do the sequel? Night at
I'm
the
gonna
Ark
do the
Encounter?
damn
Night at the
sequel.
Ark Encounter. Looking forward to it.
So many people have asked for the sequel, and I hate it, and I'm gonna do it.
I love it. And we're finding out in the chat just now that you did an episode of the Hot Ones.
Yeah, so I didn't actually do an episode like with them, but I did buy the Hot One sauce pack. And I did the whole channel. I got some wings and I ate one by one in order to teach the science of capsaicin, of how spice works, how it responds to TRPV1 receptors in your mouth and other parts of your body. And it gives you a feeling that is very much similar to being on fire, because it's literally thermoreceptors that are being activated. It is the same cell receptors that are activated when you are actually physically being burned as when you are eating spicy foods. And so we talked about the evolution of these things and their integration into human culture and all sorts of cool stuff, all while I suffered weirdly eating increasingly spicy and sometimes delicious sauces.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to go check that out. Somebody dropped the link in the chat, I think. Or I think that's
I really, at one point in the video, I explain why you shouldn't drink things like water or lemonade to kill the heat.
yes.
And then I'm chugging a bottle of lemonade the whole time. And a lot of people are calling me out in the comments like, you just said not to do. The thing is, I really like spice. I didn't want to kill it. I wanted to dilute it so I could keep talking. But I loved it. It was delicious. It was wonderful. Like, there were only a couple of sauces in there that were really bad. Most of them were awesome.
Oh, wow. Okay. Impressive. All right. I'm definitely going to watch your episode.
So for people
Love
who are going to watch this in the future and don't see our Zoom chat, you can find Forrest's review of the Night at the Creation Museum in a video he titled Dreams, Dinos, and Some Dude's Feet. The Creationist movie is worse than you think. Reacteria.
It's awful. That's
I
awful.
love it.
Just why did they put the feet in there? Why'd they put the feet in there, Rob? Why did they do that? What did the feet add to the story? You know, it was a throwaway line just to show off this dude's feet for free. Like, why is he gonna try to advertise his OnlyFans?
I couldn't believe how much time they
creation
just spent with Eric, as the night guard, just twirling around in a chair at his station. What the hell was that?
If you cut it all out, the movie's 15 minutes. It's insane. Oh man.
That's great. Okay, let's go to another question. We've got time for maybe one or two more, and I have to tell y'all, you have been giving us tons of good questions. We don't have time to get to probably all of them, but we will have a hangout after this.
That was 2 butts.
Forrest. Yes, that was 2 butts. So did they cancel each other out? Should I have just not said either one?
More butts are better.
Yeah, that's true. So having said that, Forrest, are you gonna have time to stick around for the hangout with us after the show at all, or do you have to go?
I can
No
do a
pressure.
little bit. I do have to go, but I can do a little bit.
Okay, awesome. No pressure. You can stay as long or as short as you would like. We would love to have you.
Can we ask Forrest's background question? We often have guests talk about that, and we totally didn't do that.
I think that is a perfect question to ask Forrest. Forrest, were you raised religious?
Oh, kind of, yeah. So I was never Christian, or anything like that. My family was very multicultural. My family's white. We're all European. My dad was from Austria. My mom's whole side were travelers from the Romania, Ukraine region. We don't actually know where exactly. The earliest records we have are a foothill of the Carpathians. So all I know is that I'm a Carpathian guy. But we value multiculturality. That's a word. We value cultures, and we value people, and we value learning about different people. And we also, I grew up very poor, and poverty usually brings with it a good dose of diversity as well. And so, I spent my childhood going to just about every church, mosque, temple, cathedral you could think of. There was a Hindu temple that opened up in my town. There was a Buddhist temple that opened up in my town. There was a mosque. There was a Jewish temple that helped us out a lot. And we spent a lot of time at all these places attending their festivals. We went to any cultural festival. There was like the Turkish festival and the Korean festival and the Scottish festival and all these things. We went to all of them because we wanted to learn more about the people around us. That was something that my family took very, very seriously. We also had a bit of diversity amongst belief systems in my family as well. My mom was pagan. So she taught me when I was a kid how to like draw pentagrams in the ground and cast spells for good luck and to cast away ghosts and demons and things like this. My dad was Catholic. No idea how that happened. But fuck, man. It worked. And my grandma was like a half-assed Buddhist. And those were the 3 people that raised me. And so I was raised with a diversity of religion taught to me. Oh, and also I should point out my grandma was also an English teacher when she was working. And so she used to read me bedtime stories that were the Bible, and the Quran, and the Bhagavad Gita, and Norse mythology, and Greek mythology, and all these different Egyptian mythology. She would read me all these things. My favorite one was, we would talk about Native American mythology all the time. She really valued Native American culture. She traveled around the U.S. quite a bit and had a lot of, especially Southwestern Native cultures that were taught to me. And so I was raised with this very, very, very diverse outlook on things. And as a result, I ended up what most people would probably just call spiritual. I didn't believe in a god so much, but I did believe in ghosts and spirits and ancestral guidance and vibes and like magic healing and things like that. We went to like the psychic fairs in town, and I would attend classes on how to like heal people with my energy and shit. I did all those things. I still have a book of shadows of all of my knowledge of like magical things from when I was a teenager. I still keep it. And it tells all about how to read palms and how to, read the stars and things. And
I can't wait till we're at Free for All together, man. We're gonna have so many conversations. I was a pagan high priestess for 10 years. I was a minister for 13. And I was raised Catholic. We're gonna have so many fucking conversations. It's gonna be awesome.
And so that's what I did. And I believed, as Gandhi said, that religions were all different flowers in the same beautiful garden, and that they all had some bit of truth to them. And there was this underlying reality that what we call magic is just technology that we don't understand, and all these things. And I wanted to be a sadhu. I loved that idea of this, devout, almost monastic, super spiritual guy who just is dedicated to exploring the world. I towards the latter parts of my religiosity, I guess, I was using the term mystic. I called myself a mystic. I loved like Alan Watts type thought shit, where it's like, I'm connected to the whole universe and the whole scale of the universe. All the energy is technically what a god is, but not without a name. And I'm at this moment, as I live and breathe, am also running the sun, and I'm also steering the planets, and so is every other thing in the whole universe, because it's all connected. This was all my jam, and I did some shrooms and saw pentagons everywhere, and the whole world came together, and it was that whole thing. And then at a certain point, I just started applying the same rules of logic and morality and critical thinking to those beliefs as I do to literally everything else all the time. And the second I did that, it fell apart.
So what made you do that all of a sudden?
Interestingly enough, it was my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. And what happened was she, when I met her, was a devout Christian. Her whole family is Christian, and she was the most Christian among them. Went to a Christian university, and we met and became very much infatuated with each other very quickly, and started hanging out and doing stuff. And I was already an atheist, but I was doing this mysticism thing. And I was also very interested in science. And so I showed her there's a documentary series, a very short little series called Into the Universe with Stephen Hawking. And it's a very pop sci series. And the first episode is about aliens and how they probably exist and what they might look like and stuff like that. And the very first part of the first episode is starting at the planet Earth and zooming out to see the whole scale of the universe. And so we're snuggling, and I'm like, you want to watch a cool documentary? This is the shit that I like. We're getting to know each other. And I put on this documentary, and we see that like 5-minute maybe sequence of that. And she's like, can we rewind and watch just that part again? I'm like, fuck it. Yeah, why not? And we watch it again. She's like, put it again. Watch it again. She's like, play it again. We watch it again. We watched that, I swear, like probably 50 times. And it dawned on me, like she explained, that was shit she was not allowed to learn as a kid. And she started calling me like every day and just being like, babe, we are nothing. We're nothing. This planet is nothing. And I'm like, yeah, dude, isn't that crazy? Isn't that great? And I'm just stoked about it because I've always been there. And I don't see the implications for her. And then one day she sits down and she's like, if there's that much shit going on in the universe, if this is one planet out of 8 in this one solar system, in a galaxy with 100 billion stars, out of hundreds of billions of other galaxies with hundreds of billions of stars between them, 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of those planets have life. There's millions, billions of different planets with life out there. Do they all get a Jesus? What the fuck? And there's no way we're that important. And the second she let go of that, she was like, okay, Christianity makes no fucking sense then. If on the grand universal scale, this makes no sense. And she let go of that. And the second she did that, she had already spent her whole rest of her life being taught why every other religion is bullshit. And so she didn't have another one to fall back on. And so she just became very, very atheist. And then she just turns and looks at me and is like, why the fuck do you believe in ghosts? And I was like, you know what? Oh no. And we started talking about it. And for there was about a 20-minute period where she was much more atheist than me. And then we let go of it. And we were like, you know what, though, if we're going to do this, let's lean into it. Let's fucking do this. Let's actually think about everything. And then I became a scientist because of that. And so that's that. And we are both now very atheist and very anti-theist. We both agree that religion is not only wrong, but harmful, that it is corrosive to society, that it is carcinogenic to civilization, that it damages both the individual who holds it and the civilization that they live in. That it stifles social progress, and that it is something that is just a vestigial remnant of humankind's earliest, stupidest past. It's something that we're very proud to be a part of the effort to do away with. So yeah, her deconstruction story is also mine a little bit, and it's beautiful in that way. Just one more cool thing that we share. I love her very much, and I'm happy that that's something that we get to.
Is your wife an activist as well?
No, she's a sweet bear and she doesn't want to be online, but she does help our friends and family members and things that talk to her about it in a quiet, personal way. She does these things, but she certainly doesn't want to be an influencer. She doesn't want to be online. She doesn't want to make content, anything like that. She's a sweet, snuggly creature that just is a little more shy than that.
Oh.
Well, there are several people in the chat who are very disappointed to learn that you're already spoken for, Forrest, but that was an amazing deconstruction story nevertheless.
She's an amazing person.
I love that. That is so cute. Okay, well, we are about at the end of our time, but as I said, we'll go to the hangout. If you're able to hang out for a little bit with us, Forrest, I know there are a lot of people that want to keep picking your brain. So
let's do it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up. As always, thank you to everyone for coming and joining us this evening. Thank you, Forrest, for a really, really very amazing presentation. That was impressive. So thank you for that, and thank you to all of the co-hosts and volunteers and social media team and post-production team and Discord team and everybody that makes this happen every week, and everybody who comes and hangs out with us every week. We couldn't do it without all of you, and we will be here again next week, same time, same channel, and we will give you some stories from the fall excursion and let you hear about what we did and talked about there for anybody who missed it. And we'll be also working to bring some of the presentations to you in the upcoming months that happened at the excursion that we haven't had before on here, so that you can also benefit from hearing those. And then the following week, we'll have Coleman Watts, and then we have Stacy Gran and her mom, and lots more cool programming coming up. And don't forget to follow us on social media if you would like to do that. We can be found on Facebook, on our main page, as well as the Facebook support group page. We are also on Instagram and TikTok, and I will drop the links for all of those. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube as well, where our previous episodes of RfRx are posted. And Rob, did I just read your part?
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Would you like to talk about volunteering, or should I?
I'd love to.
Okay.
I would love to. Okay. So yes, the volunteers here have learned that healing can also come from helping other people. The volunteers here find meaning and purpose by volunteering with us. And all the services are supported by our staff of volunteers. None of the atheist money coming my way, unfortunately. We're always in need of more volunteers, and you could find the volunteer tab at the top of our main page, recoveringfromreligion.org. And there's all sorts of jobs besides working the helplines. I know the helpline gets recommended on the ACA shows and other places, and a lot of people that think that's all we do, but we have the things we talked about earlier. We have support groups, we have the online community that needs moderated, we have this show, people need to host it and edit the videos and upload them to podcasts, that sort of thing. We talked about our resources. We have teams of people that do that. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and we need IT people. We're actually seeking web developers with experience in Node and Next.js. Next.js. I used to program, but this is something new, and I don't even know what it is. Next.js. And relational databases. While some time is required to familiarize yourself with the code base, volunteers who commit a few hours each week for at least 6 months can make significant and impactful contributions to this organization. So again, go to our main page, and there's a volunteer link at the very top.
Awesome. Thank you. And if you are wanting to learn more about what we do or share a shorter description of what we do than what we talked about at the beginning of this video, Rob has recently put together an awesome 3-minute video that summarizes some of the things that we do. So feel free to share that with folks who are wondering what they could get from recovering from religion. Okay, and now this is the part where we normally have a couple of closing words to wrap us up from Dr. Daryl Ray or our Executive Director, Gail Jordan, or some other member of the Board of Directors. But everyone is traveling home from the fall excursion today, so you're stuck with just us. And that is just as well, because I know everyone's anxious to get to the hangout, so I will just leave us. Yes, please.
I'm sorry. Can I ask if I can give you a thing? Just Rob talking about volunteering. Just a
Yes.
thing that I find in my life that I want to share more often. I think, like, if you're looking for meaning and if you're looking for something about yourself, I think the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of other people. That's something that I have learned in my life and something that has been impactful to me. I also find that a lot of the times, the hardest parts of your life, the most painful things that you've dealt with, are the things that you can use to help the most people, the things that will make you the most useful. So yeah, if you're looking for a place to be, and if you're looking for a community to participate in, and if you're looking for a way to find some meaning, like I just want to parrot what Rob said, like this is your chance to really make a difference for a lot of people who are just like you, and to build the community that you are desperately needing at this very moment, to be a part of that.
You know, Kara, that we're looking for shorts to put out there to promote RFR, and I think we just found one.
I think we did too. Forrest said that a lot better than what I was about to say. We're going to go with that clip. You may soon see that somewhere on the interwebs. We're going to have Forrest start doing all of our speaking for us, I think. Forrest, do you need a new volunteer job? I know
charge by the hour.
Yeah. Well, we're charity, so
atheist
may not work out.
No, it's all the atheist money, Kara.
Yeah,
all
which is
the atheist money.
George Soros and
Yeah.
Bill Gates can pay us.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? I love it. Okay, well, we can't promise you any of the secret cabal money, but we can promise you what Dr. Ray calls an emotional paycheck. And I certainly got one this year. I hope everyone else did, and very much enjoyed getting to see everyone in person at the fall excursion. And welcome to anybody who is joining us tonight for the first time after attending the excursion and finding out about it. So I don't know if there's some people like that here, but if they are, you are very welcome.